Okay, here we are. So back with our Friday appointment with Nate and special guest. We have Rizzle this week joining. Thank you so much for being here.
Yo, thank you guys for having me. It's an honor. Nate and I go way back. I'm honored to be on the podcast with him.
Super. So let's go right in. Like how way back, what's the story there? Tell us about it.
Sure. Well, I mean, I feel like Nate and I are probably like kindred spirits. I'm like, came into crypto a long time ago, like 2012, 2013, like flipping shit coins and like just sort of like hustling on the side, and sort of bounced around from like toxic community to toxic community. I hated them all, but was like looking to find like kindred spirits within like the crypto community that I could trust. And sort of fell into NFTs a little bit later than Nate did. Nate was in it like very, very early in the NFT scene before it was largely on my radar. And then we sort of hooked up by product of meeting Jim, with Avastars and the On-Chain gang. And I think both of us like were drawn to each other based on like this ethos that like NFTs should be like built properly, basically. And so Nate knows how to do that, and I like to run my mouth about it. And so, we make a good duo with that kind of thing. So Nate and I have been working together for about a year and a half now. He's got a tremendous amount of knowledge in a different wheelhouse than I do specifically. But that's how we sort of met and have been like pretty much rocking and rolling.
It's pretty much the layout of it. So actually, I've never told Rizzle this before, but so when Jim, he first told me, he's like, because they met at
can't wait to hear this.
Yeah, they met at NFT NYC or whatever it was, which I didn't get to go to because I sold my other job and I couldn't, and I had just went to ETH Denver and I just couldn't take another week off. In hindsight, I wish that I would have went because like I quit that job like a month after that anyways, but like at the time, I thought, yeah, but like,
nothing got accomplished.
No, of course not. It was a big shill fest, and I mean, so Jim, he had said, I met this guy Rizzle. He's like really fucking cool. Like you guys would really like him, and he was like talking him up, and he was saying, I think he's going to be my first hire. He's going to be the first like guy I'm going to bring into the company, and he's going to be how I want to build. And my initial reaction was like, Jim, like nobody knows this fucking dude. Like I didn't know what to I didn't know what to think about it. I thought, dude, he's just YOLO and on like, a guy that he met once, and I don't know. But then like the first time that I met Rizzle, I had the same reaction, like, oh yeah, this guy, dude, this is gonna be fucking cool. Like whenever
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I mean, really, dude. Like I remember when Jim first said it, my reaction was like, I don't understand what the fuck is going on. Like Jim has, because we've known a bunch of NFT guys that have been, and I just thought in my mind, like we have this talent pool. Yeah. But then it made sense whenever I met you, like, oh, okay, now I see what Jim had seen. And, that was
it's really interesting. I've like actually thought a lot about this lately and like how those two scenes like converged, because you were like really in, and correct me if I'm wrong, man, but and a lot of people have that reaction. They're like, who the fuck is this guy? And then I like grow on people like a horrible disease or something. But dude, I feel like there was sort of two different like large factions in the NFT scene like way back in the day, and a lot of it seemed like around the crypto kitties side and like the collector portion of it, which is my understanding of like where you and like a lot of that whole clique like came up like amongst the crypto kitties crowd. And then like concurrently while that was happening in like the early version of the Cent platform, there was like the upspring of like the crypto art scene. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of where my like upbringing or whatever you'd call it in the NFT scene really came about, with like the early incubation periods in crypto art. And then I feel like there was this convergence of those two, like collectors and the incubation collectors and art scenes, like honestly, like right around the time where we met and like sort of joined forces with like Avastars and everything. But I feel like those two things, like, I don't know, man, what's your like thought on that? Because I feel like there was like a big click over here, a big click over here. And then they finally like bridged right around the time where you were like, who the fuck is this dude, and who are these people, and
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the same sense I have. So like the NFT scene was really small even then, but in my mind, I kind of knew everyone, but I knew everyone in that sphere, and then there was still this other sphere that I just ignored. Like I ignored crypto art for quite a while because I saw it as infinitely inflationary, and I just didn't see how that would ever play out. I thought there's too much risk, at least from like an investor's perspective, that you have to trust the artist to not just start fucking just spewing out 1 million pieces after you just invested your last 20 ether on one of their one-of-ones or whatever. And I always felt like that was like this big friction, but now and it was, a misunderstanding on my part and just ignorance, where now I can see like that is part of the thing that you are like the top artists, they have some supply demand understanding, and they know that just because their pieces are now worth, let's say $200,000 a piece at a one-of-one, if you're X copy, that doesn't mean that you're just, I'm going to make $200,000 a week now, I'm going to crank out a new piece. Even though he could, I mean, if we're being real, most of his stuff is not
some people
heavily
could.
technical. So, I mean, but he understands that, and I think that that's important, and that also is why he was able to get sort of where he's gotten to, now, is having that understanding and stuff. But yeah, and then in the early days, I really just whiffed on it. I mean, I didn't see how it was going to make sense, because I came from like CryptoKitties market, which were just brutal, like shit cats and cats that had no inflationary cap on them. Just they all went to basically zero. They went to as low as you could price them that would pay for the gas to list them. I mean, that was it. It was the inevitable, and that's actually what you see on Rarible with art now, why the market is so tough for a newcomer. Nobody knows who you are. It doesn't matter. You can list it for 0.001 ether. Nobody even wants to pay gas for that, because there's, in a lot of cases, because there's no market there. I mean, there's just too much inflation. But there have been, some of the chosen ones and some of the winners that, escaped that, I guess.
I guess it's like, there's as you guys, are like OGs within like that part of like on-chain and all of like the projects that you've built. There's a portion of people that are OGs within crypto art that have been in the space since probably the same kind of time of like CryptoKitties. Like whilst that was happening, like they were like doing their own thing with an artistic movement. So there's like those two sides as well to the coin, right?
Yeah. I mean, go ahead,
man.
Yeah,
do it, dude.
I think that like, I kind of have a lot of regrets that I didn't like see it sooner, really. I mean, now it's it's super obvious to me, like people want to collect cool looking, good looking art, and it's hard to do that in sort of the native ways that we've done them. Even with like on-chain stuff, you've got limitations of what you can store on a contract, or if you're like doing generative art, there's only, like a generative collection, all the pieces look about the same, and that's not really everybody's thing either. Some people want like, this is a unique piece of art created by my favorite artist, and I just love the way it looks, and if I had a digital house, I would want to hang this in the living room. And like now it's like so obvious to me, but so I hate that I missed that and wasn't really any part of that. And I did some networking with some of the artists early last year. Was really kind of when I first started like kind of understanding it. And it was still pretty early then. Like you could get, the top people's now, you could get their pieces for, 0.2 ether, which was like $20 at the time. I mean, it was still
100%,
still pretty early, but I wasn't, and there was definitely a movement that happened outside of what was going on in my world, and the movement that was happening in the world that I was in, that was that crypto art scene. Even like the trash art guys, like the angry, like, I mean, I think that's cool as shit. I think that's a big part of this history. I mean, like, I don't know that there was sort of a rivalry there between like them and Jim more than like me, but you know, I always thought it was kind of cool. It was kind of with the spirit of crypto where you're just like, fuck everybody. And like, I just thought that was, you know, it makes sense. It goes with the space. It's just, that's what you see now. Like, I mean, crypto Twitter,
man. Super like meme-tastic. Yeah, man. I feel like that, like, and NFTs like sort of go hand in hand. Dude, if it makes you feel any better, I was like sitting on the sidelines, like watching the whole crypto art scene unfold right in front of my face, totally like feeling exactly like you did and missing the investment opportunity in it for the exact same reasons. I'm like, you can create like infinite art, you know, for whatever, you know, as much as you want. Like any artist can like essentially like drive their own stock into the ground by flooding the market with their own art. Every single one of them is like their own enterprise that you got to look at differently. And so I was like, this is like craziness. And so I didn't, Matt, my buddy, who I've been working with for a long time, is actually like one of the big early investors into crypto art. And I thought he was fucking nuts. And actually he turned out to be like way ahead of the curve. But what was really interesting to me at the time was exactly what you said, man, was that there were like a lot of really cool artists who are now considered like OG artists who were selling their artwork back then for like 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, you know, for like a 1-out-of-1, just to sort of like see if it worked, you know, just to sort of like test the concepts. Like, you know, they're importing it into like crypto voxels and different virtual worlds. And so that was like a really fascinating time for me personally, because I could support them, and now I lucked out. I got a couple like gold mines that I dumped like 25 bucks into back then that I'm sitting on now, that, you know, now some of these artists have made a huge name for themselves. But back then it seemed like it was more of like a like social experiment, like a way to like empower different artists and creators, rather than it was viewed as like an investment opportunity so much. So like, and I came into it from like your side, Nate. So I'm like, from a straight up like investing standpoint, I'm not going to dump a bag of shit coins to drop like several $1,000s on this piece of art that I, you know, is going to, you know, be worth nothing in like 5 years. But I was willing to like throw 20, 30, 40 bucks around to like, you know, get some of these artists going and like, you know, let them continue to tinker around with the process and everything. And so that was just like a very, very fascinating time, like in the NFT scene, that I was like really happy to be a part of. But dude, the crypto kitty flipping game was like my bag, dude. I like really missed the boat on that. And I felt like had I like hit the ground running on that, like my skills are sharp up until that point, like with my crypto knowledge that I had, you know, been tinkering around with by then. So I don't know, it's cool, man. It's crazy to like look at the layout. Nicole, I say man, like in general, I'm not trying to like exclude you from the conversation.
No worries.
It's crazy to just like see the landscape now compared to what it was even like a year ago. It's just mind blowing that, I mean, I feel like now everything is viewed as an investment. It's like, you know, if you're not making something that's like, you know, got like some appeal to some collectors, it's like, what are you even making these things for in the first place? Like type of attitude.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's your guys' take on the landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's, and I hate to say that, it's lost a little bit of the magic, you know, from before, where, and a big part of that is like the money is like, you can make a shitload of money now if you're in the right place, if you have the right market. And there is, I see like even a lot of the artists on Twitter, they complain about, you know, it's probably not gonna be a popular statement, but they complain about maybe some people not supporting them, or, you know, like I'm not like calling anybody out specifically. I mean, I understand.
Call them out, man.
It must be frustrating, like to create stuff and you see some other artists selling shit for 10 or 20 or 100 times more, and then you're listing your stuff at, and it's not selling. And it's got to be disheartening and frustrating. And you question yourself, like as a programmer, this is kind of a funny thing where like, so I'm sure this happens with artists too, but if you like have like a bug in your code and you can't figure it out, and then your mind just starts telling you you're a fucking fraud, like you don't know what you're doing, you need to quit, and you're just, and then
right, like imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and then you figure it out and you're like, oh yeah, I'm good again. This is probably the same thing with the artist. Like you feel like that and you get your sell and you're like, okay, I'm a real artist again. And but it's like a tough market. But anyways, there's still like so much emphasis on trying to find people who will like be buyers and supporters and let you be an artist full time without, and that's the way it's pitched too, but like without really realizing like, and a lot of the people were doing this shit in the early days were making no money. They weren't full-time artists either. They were working jobs. They built up their social media networks. They talked to a shitload of people on Discord. They spent hours and hours, days. And I'm sure there are a lot of people doing that right now, and it's hard for them. But, you know, if you keep doing that and you keep compounding, that's what does lead into something. I mean, fuck, dude, I feel like I compounded my shit for years, and it just felt like nothing. Like, I built up an Ether stack, and it wasn't worth anything because ETH was only $100. Like, it was so fucking like, so it just happened to be that finally when Ether made a big run, and you know, and then NFTs became super hot, and I was just in the right place a few times, and I had some knowledge from doing all that stuff. But yeah,
I feel like it's, you know, what you're saying, Nate, is also like it's been sold as if, you know, whatever you do within the NFT space, like you're going to find a gold mine, but that's not the case. And like, that's kind of like a message that, you know, it's been like with the media and like all of the big kind of numbers, like 69 million there and 69 million here, and, you know, 100 million, like, you know, people kind of come in and like say, oh, you know, I'm just going to like do something and make money. But actually, like, it's not really the case anymore. Like the market is kind of like, it's gone through that hype, and now it's like, I think it's just healthy that it's like, you know, kind of stabilizing in a way. And as with every market, you know, you gotta work to get things out of it, you know, like it's not easy. Like it's a job like any other, I think, right?
Yeah. No, totally. I think that's what's like so infuriating to like, I'm not trying to like speak on anyone's behalf, but I'm not even an artist or like a creator or anything to like have something out there to have missed this hype cycle. But, you know, I feel like the pain on the sideline of like these people who like were in this space, innovating, like creating these concepts, you know, figuring out all the hurdles, then for someone just to like jump in, sweep in, you know, make a bunch of money off of like some shitty concept, off of like all of, like the work that they put into like, you know, make that concept even a thing in the first place. Like, you know, it's like a tragedy in my mind for those people, because dude, I really feel like with NFTs, like part of the technology is the art, and it's like lost on people who are just sort of like coming in and, you know, have their ingrained audience and are just trying to like extract as much money as possible from their audience. Like part of what makes this so special is like the hard work that people like Nate did on the back end, like innovating, like why NFTs are such a good opportunity for artists and creators, like with the ongoing royalties, and like so much stuff about this, about like the art transcends like the actual art itself, and is also lives in like the vehicle that the art is like served up on. I mean, I guess you could draw a comparison, right? I mean, like people buy art on like canvases or like wood or like metal or like all types of like weird shit. So like, you know, I feel like discounting the technology and like all the hard work that has been put in on the back end of like all of the, I mean, to this day, like so many people are just doing experiments for like the love of like experimentation and like seeing like what this awesome technology can do. And that's what like drives me nuts about like this current hype cycle is like, I'm like they don't get that. Like, get out of here until you understand like what you're getting yourself into, because otherwise you're just buying like a JPEG or you're buying like a GIF, and it's not that, you know, even though it is in some ways. I don't know, maybe I'm getting like abstract, but like that's sort of like the double-edged sword of the hype cycle, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, the thing is I think that people who do come in, and especially as like buyers and stuff, I think that they're going to be people who come in and buy random shit are going to be the ones in years, in like, let's say 2 or 3 years, coming back hoping to have the CryptoPunks story and, oh, I bought this shit 3 years ago and now I'm coming back and to, you know, scoop in my millions, and they're going to find what happens. So the same kind of thing happened in CryptoKitties, where people came in, shallow investors, after it had really like exploded and hit media attention. And then they would spend, let's say, $100 on random CryptoKitty shit cats, basically. And they come back and then they'll, in the Discord, say, hey, I bought these cats, a few years ago. Will anybody look at them and see if they're worth anything? And I don't spend a lot of time in like CryptoKitties Discord anymore, but whenever I was there, and people would do that all the time, and you'd always check to see like, oh man, did they have a hidden gem? And they never did. They always, it would be like, ooh, that's not even those. Yeah, those are probably worth about, I don't know, $4 total. Like, no, I mean, it's it's not even worth the gas to list them or the gas to, and that's what's going to happen, I think, with a lot of shallow investors here too. It's going to happen in the art market, and even in Top Shot, I think there are some people that are probably starting to turn a little sour there, where everybody was making money. The media was telling telling all the normal people outside of crypto how much money. Oh, these guys are making tens of millions of dollars. Like, and a lot of people did make hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars on Top Shot, but they bought their shit on the first day, and they bought more before it really exploded. And now people are finding, liquidity crisis with anything that you bought probably 2 or 3 months ago is probably, worth 50% of what it was, and probably has no liquidity even at that. So it's,
man.
Not that they're shallow investors. There are people that kept just reinvesting and kept believing, and they're playing the super long-term game. But, if you came in and bought some random commons at the top of the market because they were Series 1 and they were $20 each, and you find out in 2 years that they're worth $1 or less each. I mean, that's, I think that's what will happen if you just follow your emotions, I guess, and this stuff.
Yeah. We're at the stage there where they're like flipping $9 for $11 type of things going on. I'd be interested to hear like, what are both of your thoughts about like what like current projects are out there that do have legs, that like actually have some utility or might like stand the test of time? And can you please say Meebits? I have this like dope robot that I really am trying to dump like a couple mil or something. So if you could work that into the conversation, that would be sweet.
I think we were talking about Meebits last week, and then literally like straight after, I know Nate, this is a sour topic, but straight after we had the chat, there was like the exploit with the contract, basically. All of that came out. But yeah, Nate, like, your take on this would be great.
Yeah. So projects that have legs that are new, I think that Meebits, for what it's worth, will have legs. I think that people spent way more money than they wanted to because they assumed that it was a safe investment. And they said, oh, this is Larva Labs 3. I'm going to spend as much money as possible. And if you had a good draw and you hit an elephant and you only bought 3 of them, then you of course did great. Or if you hit, any of the rares, the visitor or the skeleton or the robot or the dissected, like you hit a home run. Not mine. Like I fucking spent, like 200 grand and I hit 1 pig, and like I couldn't, if I wanted to sell all of mine, if I had to liquidate them, I would be lucky to even get like 100 grand out. Like I've definitely lost 6 figures on but my draw was bad, and I overestimated how much money there was floating around too. I did the same thing that I'm saying other people did, which is, oh, this is Larva Labs 3. This is a hit. You can spend as much money as you want to.
How can you not, man? I mean, I feel like Larva Labs just has that clout,
They do. And you feel like, oh man, 3 days later, man, the floor is probably going to be 3 or 4 ether. So you could easily flip.
Oh man, I know.
And that's what everybody thought. So everybody overinvested. And then people started going, well, if I got some rares, I'm cashing those out big. And then I'll sell my floor Meebits for 0.5 ether because I don't give a shit. Because now it's just getting the rest of my money out as much as possible. So there's a lot of that going on. I think that it's going to be a tough market for a while, but because of being related to the other Larva Labs projects, I don't think it'll go away or anything. The exploit is a little salty because, like, man, if I'm being honest, I looked at it day one. I fucking decompiled it.
You should have exploited it, Nate.
Well, so I looked at it. I tried to see, because I told myself they, knowing them, what they did on the Punks contract, they had a provenance hash. So if you could find the provenance hash, it wasn't verified at this time when I was looking at it. If you could find the provenance hash, then you could look it up on IPFS, see, I figured that they had stored them in like a grid, but they actually stored them as like a bunch of JSON files. But even with that, you could have taken all of that information, figured out which ones were the rarest or whatever, and then you could have ran like a revert contract. I knew conceptually that this was feasible, or I felt like it was very likely, even when the contract wasn't verified. But as soon as they verified it, that's when somebody else saw it, I guess, and realized that it definitely was. But like, if I had seen it, I would have fucking known too. Like, and that guy, he sold that alien for like $1 million or
200 ETH or something.
200 Ether, yeah. And actually, he undersold it too. He should have just listed it at like 400 because it's going to be notorious for being like the exploited. Yeah. I mean, Pranked bought it for 200 and flipped it for 300 like the next day. I mean, it was the easiest flip in the world. Of course, as a sleep.
He didn't know it was like from an exploited contract, right?
Yeah, I don't think that he knew that it was. I've seen some like conspiracy theories that Pranked knew and he coordinated it, and like, no, he didn't.
No,
he didn't.
When just out of curiosity, man, when something like that happens, like, is it like, from the project to the exploiter? Like, I assumed, like, to some extent, everybody knows each other, at least like pseudo anonymously. Is it just sort of like, hey, man, good game, you got me, we're gonna patch this thing up? Or are they like really pissed that something like that happens? Or like, how does that work from like the back end of things?
This is Larva Labs' fault. Absolutely. I mean, you should expect more. Like, if they had just done a fucking audit, like they could easily have afforded to do. I mean, I think it's cool because it adds to the history. So I'm not like mad at them or anything, but like, it's their fault. If somebody wants to point the finger, like if I write a bad contract, which I have done before, and it got fucking exploited, I paid the hackers
money just like
to stop doing it. I literally, like, they messaged me on Discord and I just like let them extort me. Like, but please just, So I paid them some Ether and they stopped. And then they sold out and then it was done. But like Larva Labs, they had a pause in their contract. So once they found out, they paused the contract. They let the timer expire so nobody else could do the community mint. So they had that sort of contingency plan. But the whole thing feels, I don't know, just like this shit. Man, people.
Dude, I was hoping when Monday came around, they were just gonna wipe out the rest of the run or whatever. But instead, like, I don't know what happened. They waited a few days, gave some out to their like relatives or some shit. Like, I don't know, like what was that? Stuff like that. I'm like, dude, I feel like Larva Labs, they got like 95% of their stuff is like so tight, but like with that, I'm like, I don't know. I sort of felt like duped in some ways by like what the public perception was of what would happen once Monday rolled around and all those extras were still there. And then they were just like, fuck it, we're just going to do whatever we want with them. Like,
yeah, we're going to keep 1,000 of them now. And like, yeah, I mean, I really, I don't know. I feel like I just would have expected more from them. Like, the thing is that the CryptoPunks contract had a bug in it. So then they had to do CryptoPunks 2. That's the one that everybody knows of. Then the Autoglyphs contract didn't have a bug, but it was exploitable. And nobody, well, it would be hard to tell, but nobody, as far as we know, exploited it. Other than maybe the developers themselves.
Other than maybe Nate.
No, I didn't because I didn't know until after the fact. But
somebody is asking if you would have done the exploit if you knew.
Man, this is a tough question to answer. Let's see, for PR sake, I should say no, absolutely not. I would have reported it. I probably, honestly, yes, I probably would have done it. I probably would have done it once. And actually, if I had seen that it was, after it was verified, I would have known that you could pause it. I probably would have done it and messaged them and told them, rather than like trying to maximally extract it, I would try to do it in a way that
self-honesty saves lives.
What? I'm saying I would have fucking done it. What do you want me to say? I'm being the bad
No,
guy.
I think he's saying that you
lies
wouldn't
that I
have
would have
done
even
it.
reported it.
Yeah, Nate is too pure to do such a thing.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, realistically, I think that that it just would have been cool. It would have been. I mean, obviously, it'd been cool to pull $1 million asset, right? I mean, if you could do it, and people would have. I probably would have taken some backlash for it, and I would have probably tried to do something to paint it in a positive light somehow. I don't know how I would have done that. It's hard to say, but yeah, I mean, I can.
So not only would he have done it, he would have totally manipulated the situation that
whereas still was like, look at it, yeah.
And Nate's still the good guy.
Yeah, I would have dumped it on. I would have dumped it on Pranked, and I would have told everybody that Pranked is a greedy fuck, and then and then they would say, oh yeah, he fucked over Pranked.
Dude, no, I mean, I feel like honestly, if you're Larva Labs, there's probably a certain amount of like, I don't want to say happiness, but like, when someone points out a flaw like that, even if they like only get away with one thing, like you're probably glad that it's been brought to light before someone does something like really awful with it. So, and I feel like people, I've witnessed that before too, where people sort of like point out a hole in the system. And so in exchange for like pointing that out, they sort of get like hooked up or paid on the back end for like pointing out the exploit or whatever. So I don't know. I feel like Nate could be pure and like squeeze a visitor out of the situation and like somehow it all works out.
Honestly,
in a way, like they should even be, I don't want to say thankful, but like in a way it's good that somebody did that, because they had a fault in the contract, so at least somebody like realized that, right? Like I'm sure that they thought it was all good until somebody did that.
This is a pretty basic.
They should give you a visitor for not doing it, man.
Yeah, I should have said that. Man, I'm telling you, like I beat myself up a bit about it, because if I had known that it got verified, I would have literally recognized this within probably 5 minutes. I would have known that, oh, you can exploit this. Because it would have been obvious that they were calculating it with chain randomness. So you just run another contract side by side with it that has the exact same calculation, and it's running it at the same time, and you buy through that contract as like a middleman contract. And then you just add the extra function in there that says, if the RNG isn't what I want it to be, just cancel that one. I mean, it's
how did they not see that?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, and I've said this about Larva Labs before, and because it always bothers me when somebody talks about like how like good of programmers they are, and like they are, and don't get me wrong, I mean their design is top notch. Like I didn't really like the Meebits aesthetic initially, and then once I like got to see the collection, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fucking cool for like metaverse characters. Actually, this is really cool. This goes perfect with Vox. And then like CryptoPunks, the aesthetic is amazing. Like Autoglyphs, just the concept, the designs, their ideas are fucking so top notch. They are so good at that. But then their programming skills have always been, and I've said it before, even this, that it's not like they're bad, they're functional programmers, which is fine. I mean, that's really where I live too more. So I'm not like shit talking. I'm like, that's really where I am. I'm not like the strongest programmer. I'm more like a functional like programmer, and I want to have like good ideas that I can at least just make functional and execute them. So not like shit talking them, but I've always kind of thought that about them, that they weren't like they didn't consider trying to do some sort of commit reveal scheme or using like an Oracle solution or VRF from Chainlink. And there's like all these solutions that you have now, and they still use this like crappy, like exploitable, like like I would have recognized this shit in 5 minutes and went, oh yeah, you can hack this. And that's probably the guy who did it probably saw that, when coded it up, started running his revert bot. And it is, it's like a probability game. There's still only so many ultra rares out of the last few thousand or so. He just had to keep reverting it over and over and over until he finally pulled the one that he wanted. I think he wasted like $10,000 in gas.
I saw it.
It was a pretty big, not every, but the barrier was high in that you would need to be able to potentially afford $25,000 or $30,000 of wasted money before you maybe hit something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and yeah, so the barrier was high in that sense, but I mean, I could have done it. So I don't know.
Knowing that you're
And
going to
what
hit
do
it
we think
eventually.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
What do you both think about, apart from Meebits, like as Rizzle, you were saying and asking before, like what are other projects that are, you know, like, I guess that are using that kind of utility? Like, you know, that's the buzzword at the moment is like, what are NFTs going to be used for? Apart from like art and, you know, aesthetics, which is obviously, you know, that's a part, but when it comes to like NFTs, like what are the projects that you have an eye on, or are they not there yet? Do we still have to see?
I mean, I'm not seeing a whole lot of stuff really. I mean, if like my take has been that the most shit that's been getting pushed out is just coasting off the fact that collectibles are hot or whatever. So
that's what it sort of feels like, right, man? Like collectible roulette almost, like right now, just from one to the next.
Yeah, exactly. You push out a new collectible, you hope that there's enough like demand for you to sell out, and then you hope that people will perceive that there's enough demand for them to sell out and maybe get secondary action. So that in turn leads to you selling out. And then you as the creator go, I'm done. It's just a collectible. See you later. And then so there's nothing against collectibles because I do love them. I mean, and both of my projects are pretty much purely like collectible projects. But, you know, like there hasn't been a lot of utility NFT projects. You know, in 2017, 2018, I guess more, everybody, the NFTs they did, their goals were to like have them do something. You know, Axies had their game, CryptoKitties had their game, Voxels. You know, there wasn't like all art or whatever. Now it is that, and feels lazier. Like so that's why I think the metaverse integration with Meebits is pretty cool, assuming that they actually get around and get that working. It seems like they've done some work on making that happen. So, but yeah, I would like to see some more. Like there was a time when I was bored of utility stuff and it felt like people were forcing them. But now I feel like we've circled back to where we kind of need that again. Like figure out what you're going to do a collectible and what the point of it is or whatever. It's not just like a baseball card without the baseball or whatever. It's like actually a thing, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I feel like, it's sort of like collectible roulette, and I'm a sucker too, man. I see these dumb things and I'm like, but at this point I do say to myself, I'm like, if I buy one of these dumb things, I am essentially assuming that I'm stuck with it, and if I can flip it, cool. But you know, almost any collectible that I buy a bunch of at this point, I'm like, you know, I'm rolling the dice like pretty significantly. I don't know, man. The audio NFTs are interesting. I feel like we're still in their infancy in terms of like them actually being like collectible along the same lines as like a cassette tape or like a CD or something. But I feel like we're moving in that direction. I think that is eventually like the next iteration of like the MP3, like essentially like a collectible or like scarce version of that thing. Virtual lands are interesting to me as NFTs, even though I know like in the back of my head, I know they can just like produce them infinitely. I scooped up, I try and get like one or so in like each of the main areas just to like, just cause like, I'm like, dude, if we all end up living in VR, I feel like this will have some sort of like application. And if nothing else, when my son gets a little bit older, he's going to have a blast just like tinkering around with it and everything. And so I'm like, you know, that way I can like wrap my head around it. I'm like, this actually has some like, you know, my kid's going to love playing around with it. He can like, you know, build stuff with it. He can learn about NFTs with it. You know, it actually has like a lot of like value that I can get from it, even if like the actual value of it like plummets into the ground. You know, I can still see it like, you know, almost if you were to like dump a lot of money into like a video game system or a video game or something itself, like, you know, you're going to get a certain amount of time out of it should you choose to put that time into it. So those things are cool to me, that I feel like, you know, almost no matter what happens, as long as those projects live on, those are like cool things to hang on to. But otherwise, Nate, I'm like sort of in the same like mindset as you are. I'm like, you know, at this point I need to see like some sort of like innovation or something, doing something different. Art Blocks was like not to shit on Art Blocks, and I love Snowfro over there and everything, but I felt like the concept behind Art Blocks was like so rad. But now there's like a million different like independent blocks and like tons of different generative projects, and Art Blocks is still like ahead of the curve with that. But now it's, you know, that's like a thing that's been done and like redone a million times now, so it's not like a new trick every time, you know, someone releases a new piece of generative art or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. Those are like, I guess, the things off the top of my head. But dude, I love the collectibles, and I love playing collectible roulette. But I feel like the market's just so flooded with that right now.
Yeah, definitely.
We have a comment saying low bear market, drive for innovation, like the DeFi building after the last meme shitcoin crash.
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with that entirely. There's low incentive to innovate. Like, why are you going to spend 6 months?
Yes.
This is what people are thinking. Why are you going to spend 6 months building something awesome when you can just hire some artists on Fiverr, you know, generatively assemble them and make 1,000 ether like in a month or 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what you're getting, and that's why the markets, NFT markets, are doing shitty right now, honestly. I mean, I think I listed a bunch of stuff the other day, and usually when I go through like my collection and list some things, if I list some things within the next few weeks, I'm getting quite a lot of sales. I'm making some revenue or whatever, what feels like some kind of passive income. And I listed like a bunch of shit, and I think only like one thing is sold. Like, and maybe I price things too high now or something because my mind is different. But it's just my sense is that none of the markets are really doing that well. None of the NFT markets are performing very well. And I don't know if that's purely a factor of Ether becoming more and more expensive, and now USD is actually starting to creep in people's minds a little bit. I mean, it is to me. A lot of people tell me it's not to them, but to me, like, I listed my autoglyph for like $500,000, and it's felt insane to me. Like, that's outrageous. I mean, I bought this shit for $20. Like, so, you know, to get like a markup like that is just you know, insane. And I think that the USD is starting to have maybe some psychological effect maybe on the market too. People are going, whoa, 0.5 ether, that's $2,000. Like, that's all of my bills for the month or whatever. Like, the landscape's changing because of that. I mean, even gas, honestly, something that I've never really put much thought into and cared about, has started to become a thing that I've found myself going, I'm not going to do it right now. Gas is too high, which I've never done that. I've never been cheap about gas, but like, shit, like 0.05 ether is, fuck, I don't know. It's, you know, $200 or something.
Too much.
Yeah. I mean, there's like, shit, that's a nice dinner, you know?
Yeah. Dude, I sort of agree with the post physical NFTs comment there. To me, it feels like up until this like most recent hype cycle, it seems like we were in this phase of like rapid innovation where like so many like new concepts and ideas were being introduced like on the regular. And now it just sort of feels like almost like what you just said, man. We're just sort of riding that wave of like, you know, all that rapid innovation got us to here. And now everyone's just cashing in on it. We're not like innovating anymore. We're just dumping bags and like, you know, throwing out shit projects and just trying to, I mean, there's obviously still innovation going on, but that is what it feels like.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's been some decent like design projects and stuff like the Apes project. I felt like the art was at least decently well put together. I mean, as far as like it being innovative, I don't think really it was at all. I mean, just, you know, and that's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. I mean, it's
cool. Apes are cool.
Yeah, I mean, they have
Yeah,
a good,
no, apes are cool, but it kind of feels like we've talked this before with Nate, but it kind of feels like you have like a community, you build a community around it, and then whatever, you launch, like if you have the right promo and the right kind of FOMO more than promo,
Yeah.
you can, it works in some way or form. And then there's like something that, I find like kind of funny is that there's always like a phase 2, but then the phase 2 like kind of never happens. And so there's somebody like kind of buys phase 1 and then waits for the phase 2, but like it kind of it's gone. And then you're like, oh, what about that thing that was supposed to happen with like a phase 2 and never really did? It's something that I've been thinking about lately, like some of these like phases 2 that have just kind of never disappeared, like kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, I'm embarrassed as shit at this, and I laugh about it because it's just so true. Like I've publicly failed on this really with both of the projects that I did independently last year. And so Chain Faces, there was the Chain Faces golf concept, which I wrote the contract for and tested and like had it ready to go. I had like, it was like this simple game where you could enter your Chain Faces to play golf, and it all happened automated. It was just like a RNG. It was basically like I thought of it kind of in the same way as like how crypto kitties are. You take 2 kitties, you breed them together, you get a new one. Well, in this case, you take your Chain Face, you run him through the golf course. He gets, a score or whatever, and he generates a golf card, and the stats get updated on his metadata. It was like a whole like on-chain metadata. Like there was a reason that I wanted to build it, and I got pretty close, but with like the animation, I couldn't get it. Just couldn't fucking get it to work. It was taking forever. So then I hired somebody, and then it was taking him forever, and then we just gave up because by the time that we had like spent all this time and money into it, like it was like nobody cares about Chain Faces anymore. And this is like this summer, and it felt like the window to do something.
Everyone's already on to the next thing.
Yeah, and so it kind of just became defunct, and I launched the Squiggly project, and that was on-chain art. Like, I had like a vision for how that's going to play out. And actually, I'm still holding on to this one. So I'm not giving up on either of these. Let me put that out there. I want to like get this shit. I want to get Chain Faces golf. I want to get the Atlantis stuff like rolling. And with Squiggly, there was ink was generated as you participate in the auctions. So my idea was to have this closed economy, and like the next project that I launched would only accept this ink token. So there's like, if you needed to buy into it, you could use Ether, but it would automatically buy ink from the liquidity pool. So like, okay, now you have this ink, and you can, like my next project, which will be to a wider audience of hopefully a bigger audience than the last ones, will have like sort of this constrained point of you need ink. And like, that was like my goal to that. But then, I haven't launched a second project for that. So it ties in.
I wasn't pointing my finger at you.
No,
put you on the hot seat, man.
I didn't think that you were.
So Nate, how come you haven't delivered, man?
I'm a fucking failure,
I was
man.
waiting on those Chain Faces.
But it's
man.
not,
You try to play golf.
But this shit is prevalent in NFTs. CryptoKitties, they had a game that they fucking teased for years and never came out. And then it was Top Shot, like fuckers. I mean, this happens all the time. So like, I think I've heard numerous projects, tease that they were going to start, they would have a breeding mechanic to their collectibles. And I've never one time see them actually do it. Never. Because by the time they like figure out,
what's the incentive, right? Once you sell out, there's not a lot of money to be made, like rolling out phase 2 and phase 3, right?
It's the ICO problem, really. I mean, ICOs in 2017 raised tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And they're like, yeah, we have the money to do this stuff. And then they're like on the beach coding, and they're like, well, I don't really feel like coding right now. It's pretty nice today. And then after a year, nobody cares. And if it's trading,
right, everyone's on to the next ICO.
Yeah, and I hate to admit that, and I only laugh about it because that's like a prevalent thing. And I haven't given up on myself. I haven't quit the NFT space. I have like every intention to like finish the things that I've publicly said that I was going to do. And I think even Avastars, you know, launched, there was the idea of replicants, which we've been back and forth with whether they would come out before or after the minting. Now, I mean, it might as well wait till the end of the minting. But there's, you know, it's just is the thing. Like people, they have the ideas. They, you know, it just takes longer than people would think
time
to like hit the goal, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Something maybe I didn't think about, that it does take time. But I do feel like a little part of it is like kind of like building on that like foam. That's like, you know, if you don't, you know, you're getting this because you're gonna like get into the phase 2, or there's gonna be like some sort of like new thing happening in that second part that you're gonna miss out if you don't have that first part, which I guess is like human mechanics. But yeah.
Should be like rule number 1 of NFT collecting now. Like, don't count on phase 2. Like, whatever.
I mean,
I think phase 2 happens.
It's not gonna happen.
And it's been in shit coins.
It has. You're absolutely right.
The like Wraith protocol from like it's all. There's a lot of.
So, well, I guess one last thing for you both, and then, you know, I'm sure you have busy days, but like, what is something, I mean, you are both like working at NFT 42, so you must get, you know, like a lot of requests of projects, and you know, you share this ethics and the technology, the on-chain, which is going to be like essential movement, like in the future, really. Like that's, you know, that's what I hope NFTs will all be on-chain at some point. So what is something that you both would like to see in the space that is not happening at all? Doesn't have to be like maybe just even one utility of an NFT or something like that.
Like specifically, you know, we've teased it before that I think I really want to see like, oh, actually, no, I'm going to go a different direction than something that I've said before. One thing that I would love to actually see is somebody figure out the physical digital crossover. I really don't think anybody has done that correct. Like there's been like some solutions of like, oh, it's, you know, it's got RFID. Like, no, I mean, I don't know what the right solution is. And I've thought about it a few times. Maybe there isn't a way to do it. I don't know. But I feel like what you really need is a way that both the items are always connected no matter what. You can't split them up. Like right now, you buy your Beeple NFT and then you get the physical one, and then you can just sell the NFT and then you got the physical, or you could sell the physical on eBay and you have the NFT. And I just don't like that. That just feels like two different things. That doesn't feel like one thing that's married together. I feel like you need, you know, I mean, I don't have a solution for it, I guess, but I hope that there is a solution for that. I hope somebody that figures it out, like how to keep them always married together. You can't sell the NFT without the physical. You can't sell the physical without the NFT. They're the same thing, essentially.
Dude, that's a good one, man. I'll double down on yours because I agree with you, man. There's a lot of like cool projects coming out that like are tinkering around with those concepts, but I agree with you that no one's like quite figured it out yet. But that's a good one, dude. I'll go like a little bit more like abstract in terms of like what I'd like to see from like the NFT scene or space in general. You know, I really feel like the community and like the people who were involved in this like really early on have like basically unlocked something that's going to change like the course of humanity. And I'm not trying to be like trite or like overstated or anything, but I really believe like the technology that this community has like unlocked for the world is going to change the lives of like millions of people, like millions of creators, artists, musicians, and everything out there. And so I would really, and I am very fearful of the space being like co-opted by like big business, or just like diluted or like shit on, or like, you know, basically like repurposed. And I genuinely feel like the people who are the developers, who are like behind the scenes, like Nate, are like the Thomas Edisons and like the Ben Franklins of our time, who like deserve that type of like notoriety. And like, dude, I'm serious, dude. I mean, this is like world changing shit that I feel like the OG community like really needs to maintain a firm grasp on their sense of entitlement, which is like correct for the OG community to feel entitled about the progress that we've made and not let that narrative get like muddled or co-opted or like lost in the shuffle. I think it's like a big deal that needs to be like continuously like banged into people's heads and like reiterated so that the people who like were there in the beginning get the credit that they deserve.
I agree. 100%. We didn't actually even speak about, you just said big brands and my mind popped to eBay. But yeah, we didn't speak about that. But yeah, that was a thing this week.
What is that?
Crazy.
Man,
no, actually, Nate told me what that was,
you,
and I was like, "Oh, that is what that is." Nate,
I'm telling you, man. So take these kind of opportunities where people are not. So on eBay, the play is you use your knowledge in the real work fucking NFT space, and you sell your NFTs for more expensive on eBay. You can cross arbitrage the platforms. Like this is.
They told me I was like, duh.
Yeah, so like with drop shipping now, like no opportunity to do drop shipping, and if anybody doesn't like know what that is, it's where you say you find a chair on Amazon and it's $100. You just take the picture and you list it on eBay for $110. And if somebody buys it, you buy the one from Amazon and you just put in their address and just and that kind of shit's going to happen. This arbitrage between OpenSea and eBay. You will list a CryptoKitty that's worth nothing on there for $5. And if somebody buys it, you'll just transfer it to them, buying it off the marketplace. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's opportunity for like people who know what's going on to probably make some money when that actually becomes a thing, So, yeah, I don't know.
We have just to close off. I think Rizzle, you were a great success as a guest. You have comments on Twitter saying "good to see you,"
thanks.
and then Brian Brinkman is saying, "I love seeing the faces behind the voices I've listened to for the past year. It's like the reveal of the masked singers."
Sweet. What's up, Brian? Brian
so
Brinkman.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for the chat. It was great to have you. Nate, it was great to have you as always. Let's hope there's no exploits of contracts after this chat. Nothing happens. Fingers crossed.
If they do, you know how to blame.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys.
All right. See ya.
Yep. See you guys.